It all began on the morning I walked into the courtroom, clutching an envelope so tightly in my hand that my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding, not out of fear, but out of the burning fire of betrayal. I had spent 35 years building my business, my fortune, brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice. And now, the man who once swore to love and protect me was sitting on the other side of the room, wearing an expensive suit, smirking as if he had already won. That man was my husband, Richard. He wasn't always like this. When I first met him, he was charming, attentive, and full of dreams. We built a life together, or at least that's what I thought. But as the years passed, I realized he wasn't building with me.
He was taking from me.
Slowly, quietly. And then one day, the mask came off. I remember the night it happened. I was sitting at my desk, going over financial statements, when I noticed something odd. Large sums of money had been transferred out of my accounts into shell companies I had never heard of. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But when I dug deeper, I found a trail that led straight to Richard. I confronted him. My hands were shaking, my voice trembling, but my heart was determined. "Richard," I said, holding up the papers. "What is this? Where is my money going?" He didn't even flinch. He poured himself a glass of scotch, took a slow sip, and smirked. "It's not your money, darling," he said coolly. "It's ours. And I'm simply moving our fortune around. You should be thanking me." I felt my stomach twist. "Don't you dare call this ours. I built this. You know I built every piece of this with my own blood, sweat, and tears. You had nothing when you met me." He laughed, a cold, hollow laugh that sent chills down my spine. "Maybe so," he said. "But now, the law says I get half. And if you try to fight me, I'll make sure you walk away with nothing." That night, as I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while he snored peacefully beside me, I made a promise to myself. He thought he was clever. He thought he had won. But he had underestimated me. I wasn't going to just fight him. I was going to destroy the lies he built. And that's how I ended up in court, holding an envelope that contained the one thing that would make the judge laugh in his face. The courtroom was buzzing with whispers. Friends, business associates, even distant relatives had shown up to watch what they thought would be my downfall. Everyone knew Richard as the charming, successful husband, the man with the silver tongue. Very few knew the real Richard, greedy, manipulative, and ruthless. He walked in with his lawyer, a flashy man in a blue tie who strutted like he owned the place. Richard winked at a woman in the audience, then sat down across from me, leaning back with his arms crossed, grinning like a cat about to eat a mouse. His lawyer stood up and began with a confident voice. "Your Honor, my client has been married to Mrs. Carter for 35 years. By law, he is entitled to half of her fortune. Half of everything she owns. Half of her companies, her estates, her accounts. Half." I could feel the stares on me. People whispering, calculating numbers in their heads, already imagining me broken and penniless. Richard leaned forward, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't fight it, Margaret. It's the law. The sooner you accept it, the better. Just sign the papers and make it easy." Something inside me boiled, but I stayed calm. I had to. I glanced at the envelope in my lap. Not yet. Timing was everything. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression, turned to me. "Mrs. Carter, you've heard the claims. Do you have anything to say?" I stood slowly, every step measured. My heels clicked against the wooden floor, echoing in the silence. I could feel Richard's smirk growing wider as if he was savoring my humiliation. "Yes, Your Honor," I said softly but firmly.
"Ido."
Richard's lawyer chuckled under his breath. "This should be good," he muttered. I turned to face the judge. "My husband claims half my fortune is his by right. But what he hasn't told this court is how he planned to steal everything, not just half. He didn't want 50%. He wanted it all." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Richard's face twitched for just a second before he forced the smirk back on. "She's lying, Your Honor. She's desperate. Look at her." The judge raised a hand. "Order." Mrs. Carter, do you have evidence to support this claim? That was the moment. My fingers tightened on the envelope. Yes, Your Honor, I said.
Ida.
And it's all in here. I walked toward the bench, my pulse hammering in my ears, and placed the envelope gently in the judge's hands. Richard laughed out loud. What is this, Margaret? Some love letters? A desperate plea? You can't win. I told you, you're nothing without me. The judge opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the papers inside. Then suddenly he did something no one expected. He chuckled. Then he laughed, an honest, deep laugh that filled the entire courtroom. And Richard's smirk vanished. The sound of the judge's laughter echoed through the courtroom, bouncing off the wooden walls like thunder. Every eye turned toward him, puzzled, curious, desperate to know what could possibly be so amusing in such a serious case. Richard's face, once so smug and confident, began to crack. His smile faltered. His fingers drummed nervously on the table. Your Honor, he stammered, what exactly is so funny? The judge cleared his throat, still smiling as he held up the papers for all to see. What's funny, Mr. Carter, is that you walked into my courtroom claiming half of your wife's fortune, while forgetting that your greed left a trail a mile wide. He shuffled the papers, holding up the first one. Bank transfers. Large sums of money moved from your wife's business accounts into offshore companies registered under your name. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Richard's lawyer jumped to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. Those papers. The judge cut him off with a glare. Sit down. These are certified documents provided by Mrs. Carter's forensic accountant. Perfectly legal evidence. My heart raced as I watched Richard squirm in his chair. His face turned pale, beads of sweat forming at his temple. The judge held up another paper. And here we have recorded phone calls. Mr. Carter, your conversations with associates discussing how you would drain her dry and make her beg for pennies. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Some people gasped, others shook their heads in disgust. Richard buried his face in his hands, but it was too late. The truth was out. And finally, the judge said, lifting the last document with a small smile, a signed agreement between you and a potential buyer, promising to sell all of your wife's companies once they were under your name. Not half, Mr. Carter.
All.
You wanted to strip her of everything. The judge leaned back, his laughter subsiding into a look of stern authority. You thought this courtroom would hand you half her fortune, when in reality, these papers prove attempted fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Tell me, Mr. Carter, do you still want to pursue this case? Richard's mouth opened, but no words came out. His lawyer sat frozen, staring at the floor, knowing there was nothing left to argue. I stood tall, my voice steady. Your Honor, my husband underestimated me. He thought I would crumble. He thought I would hand over everything I worked for. But I will not be bullied. Not by him. Not by anyone. The judge gave me a nod of respect. And you won't have to, Mrs. Carter. Not in my courtroom. Richard's eyes darted around, wild and desperate, like a trapped animal. He slammed his fist on the table. This isn't over, Margaret. You can't do this to me. But the truth was, it already was. The judge slammed his gavel down, silencing Richard's outburst. Enough, his voice thundered. This court does not tolerate greed, lies, or manipulation. And certainly not in matters of law. The entire courtroom went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. The judge turned to Richard, his eyes piercing. You came here expecting to walk away with half of your wife's fortune. Instead, what you have given me is evidence of fraud, deceit, and betrayal. You will not receive a single penny, Mr. Carter. Not one. In fact, you should be grateful I am not forwarding this evidence to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Gasps filled the room again. Richard's lawyer buried his face in his hands, muttering under his breath. Richard, pale and trembling, sank into his chair like the life had been drained from him. The judge turned to me. His tone softened. Mrs. Carter, you are free from this man's claims. Your fortune, your companies, your legacy, they remain yours untouched. You've shown remarkable strength and preparation. This court respects that." I felt tears prick at my eyes. For the first time in months, I could breathe. The heavy weight on my chest lifted, replaced with a surge of pride and relief. I turned and looked at Richard. This was the man who once vowed to stand by me through thick and thin, the man I thought I knew. But greed had hollowed him out, leaving nothing but a stranger. And now, that stranger was defeated, not by anger, not by revenge, but by the truth. As I walked out of the courtroom, the crowd parted, some patting my shoulder, others whispering words of admiration. I held my head high, not because of the victory, but because I had taken back control of my life. Outside, the sun was shining, warm and golden. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the light wash over me. I had learned something important. Money can build walls, it can create envy, it can even destroy relationships, but truth, courage, and preparation will always stand stronger. I wasn't just the woman who had defended her fortune. I was the woman who had defended her dignity. And as for Richard, the man who once smirked, certain of my downfall, he walked out of that courthouse a broken man, laughed at by the very judge he thought would side with him. For me, it was not just justice. It was freedom.